Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk about something. Let's take a look at some pictures here. These pictures are from an actual traditionally published edition of A Feast for Crows, one of the Song of Ice and Fire books by George R.R. Martin, a rather popular fantasy series. I don't know if you've heard of it or realize that they made it into a fairly popular fantasy soap opera on HBO. Do you notice anything wrong with these? Do you notice something interesting about these hands? Do you notice the colors or the lack thereof? Let's take a look at another picture here. This is an interesting one. Here's something that I didn't expect to see in Westeros. That is a cross. What do you notice about these guys' faces? They look a little odd to you. Huh? What about the clothes? What about the shading? What about, again, the colors? Boy, we're seeing a lot of blue, aren't we? The reason for this is because basically the artist for this illustrated edition of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Feast for Crows, used AI. So he didn't even use AI as a sketch layer and paint over it from what I can see here with some of these images. It really looks like he just prompted Midjourney or whatever, and this is what it spat out, and this is what he turned in. This is a huge grift. It's a huge fraud, and there are some reasons why it's a fraud. Whatever kind of attitude you have about AI art, whether you think it's bad, whether you think it's good, the fact is that this guy was not hired to prompt Midjourney, and in fact, no publisher ever would hire someone to prompt Midjourney or any other AI, nor would anybody who's not retarded ever pay somebody to do AI art, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the big thing is George R.R. Martin has always been kind of anti-AI as far as I've seen, and the publisher themselves, whoever was in charge of this, my name is Rhea Golden, and I manage the art direction and licensing development here at Fever River, working closely with GRM as his schedule will allow, but I alone am responsible for approving all the licensed art that accompanies our Song of Ice and Fire book-driven materials. Recently, there have been accusations floating around that the Penguin Random House's illustrated edition of A Feast for Crows was produced using AI generative art. It 100% was. It's extremely obvious to anyone who's ever used AI art, who's ever tried to do anything with AI art, besides this giant moon as well, right? This is definitely AI art. It has all of the telltale signs. Even if he had bothered to fix the melty faces, it still would feel like AI art because of the color palettes, because of the arrangement of things, because of the way that swords don't go in hands correctly. All of these things point to AI. So it's pretty obvious to anybody who's actually ever used AI or prompted AI in any kind of thorough manner or tried to iterate images using AI. This is definitely AI. But let me keep reading that, right? To our knowledge, and as presented by the artist who completed the work in question, there was no such programming used. So the artist is a liar. While he is a digital multimedia artist and relies on digital programming to complete his work, when we think of digital artists, we think of someone using a Wacom tablet, right, to draw into Photoshop or Clip Studio or something like that. They're still generating the lines somehow. They're still choosing what the thing will look like versus typing into Midjourney /Imagine characters that look like this, right? Which is the whole point of generative AI, is that you don't have to be an artist to do it, right? You can just generate it. While he's a digital programmer, he has expressed unequivocally that no AI was used, so he's lying. So the official word from our office is, of course, that we do not willingly work with AI generative artists in any way, shape, or form. This message has been brought to you by the minions of Fever River. Okay, so I don't know if that's real or not, and I can't vouch for its reality. It's just something that was posted on Twitter. But if we go and we look at this guy's little portfolio here, it's not AI. It's not great. But this doesn't have the hallmarks of AI art. This just looks like maybe traced or, painted from a reference, let's say. This looks like something that was photobashed and painted over. If you don't know what photobashing is, it's like I take a bunch of stock photos, I stick them together, kind of like how I've designed Photoshop covers for my own books before. You take that and then you paint over it, right? So that's photobashing, is that you use references to make this thing real, either a reference that you're looking at off to the side if you're painting with real media, or in the digital space, what a lot of artists will do is trace. This is nothing new. There's been plenty of controversies over tracing. You can find a great video here that's like tracing the success of Greg Land. I think it's Comic Tropes did that video, and it's a really good rundown of the controversy around Marvel comic artist Greg Land and his extensive use of, shall we say, reference photos in order to produce his work. But when I see this, I don't see AI. Like, this is not AI art. This is something that's actually done. So given like this little portfolio, and given what the publisher said, and given George R.R. Martin's stance on AI, right? The reasonable assumption when contracting the artist is that they were going to actually paint things. They were going to actually generate the art, whether that was going to be in like Clip Studio, using a tablet or something, or they were going to paint it on a canvas and scan it in or something like that. It was going to be made in somewhat of the traditional fashion, the way we think of as artists actually making art prior to like 2021 or whenever 2022, whenever the stuff really started to hit, right? That's the reasonable assumption. So they contract them with that in mind, knowing their perspective. The artist says he didn't do that when it's obvious to people who've actually used these things. That's exactly what he did, right? I'm not going to make a definitive legal claim, okay? But as somebody whose expertise is in this area, this really looks like AI. In fact, I think it's a dead ringer for virtually all of the AIs that I've seen. It's incredibly obvious, and it could have been fixed, right? He could have used it as a sketch layer and painted over it and made it look better, chosen better colors. Because as we look through this, what the fans really noticed is that these things don't match what's in the books, right? They're not matching what the scenes that they're looking at are. They're not matching the way the characters look. There's characters who have crowns when they shouldn't have crowns. There's characters wearing blue for some reason. The blue, if you want to know why the blue is there, it's because Midjourney, and I assume other generative AI programs, but Midjourney especially does this, is blue is a neutral color that it uses in fantasy book covers a lot. And blue looks really good on a fantasy book cover. And people use Midjourney to make fantasy book covers a lot. It's really popular for that purpose. I've even made some book covers using Midjourney, and I've always been honest about that. And this is my whole point about this, is like, it's just dishonest, right? I've never charged anyone to prompt an image. In fact, I think I've made book covers for free for people. I'm like, here, you can make a book cover in 10 minutes using this, back in 2022 or whenever this stuff landed. I did that for a couple people just to show how quickly and cheaply you can make a book cover without having to use Photoshop, really. You just have to get the image and then design the text, which is kind of step number 2. People mess up the text quite a bit too, I'll tell you that. But if we look at this sort of picture, like why are they wearing blue? It's because blue is a neutral color when you are dealing with certain kinds of graphic design, especially like fantasy book covers. You want it to look blue. So you have blue in some contrasting color, usually yellow. A lot of my covers have blue with yellow text. Blue and yellow is really common. So what do we see here? Blue and yellow, maybe red and yellow. So blue, red, and yellow, these strong like primary colors. That's what we're going to be seeing most of if we're using some of these AI generative programs to make this stuff. That's why we're seeing so much blue. Blue we interpret as neutral, as like a neutral grayish color, even though it's blue. It's really supposed to be the thing that we think of it as gray. But all the fans noticed, why are they wearing blue? They should be wearing like red, or they should be wearing a different color or something like that, depending on where they were supposed to be for this sort of thing. So the fans noticed right away the art is not good. They noticed it doesn't match the book, which is the whole point. So for people that are like, AI art is good, it's like, it's not good. So it's not good because we can look at it and see that it's not good. It doesn't match the books because the fans can see that it doesn't match them. What fans really wanted, and when we're talking about an illustrated edition of a book, let me get rid of those funny VHS filter effect. Okay. What people are thinking of for like an illustrated edition, for a value add, this is part of that long tail. We talk about the wide mouth and the long tail when it comes to marketing and fandoms, right? The long tail is the people who want to buy like premium editions of their favorite books. So this is one, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, illustrated by Jim Kay. He did a really fantastic job with this. This is what fans want, is they want that artist's vision of what's going on there. They like the visualization. They want the artist to visualize with them this imaginary place that they really love. That's the draw of it. It's like, this is a premium edition that somebody put a lot of effort into. The high cost of the book is due to all the extra value that's added into it through the illustrations that are inside of it. So given that this is a long tail thing, it's a value add, why would you do AI art? You wouldn't. And the reason is because AI art is worthless. AI art is worthless. You wouldn't hire an artist to do this, right? You wouldn't hire an artist to prompt any of these AIs, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT or any of them. This very much looks like Midjourney, more like Midjourney, but I don't know. I don't know which ones he used. I can't say for sure. They've all kind of caught up to each other since I've really last used them. But you wouldn't do that because you could just have an intern do this. So if you're like, well, we need some illustrations, and someone's like, we could just do this in Midjourney. And it's like, okay, how long will that take? 30 minutes. So I'm going to take 30 minutes and like a couple of credits, and I'll go make all the images that we need for the book. Boom. Why would you pay an artist for that? You wouldn't. You could have an intern go ask the AI to draw exactly what you want. And it'd probably be more accurate, actually. It would probably have more accuracy, because if you were to ask fans to make this stuff with AI, it would be more accurate because they would know more. They would care more about what the characters are really supposed to look like and what they're really doing and what they might be wearing. And they might try to avoid colors like blue, or they might even bother to drop it in Photoshop and maybe smooth out the horror faces and maybe recolor something. Okay. So it's not good. And it's worthless. Once the consumer realizes that he can get infinite art for free, basically, for such little cost that it's effectively free, there's no reason he would ever pay for it. What you're trying to do whenever you're trying to sell AI art to someone or an AI book is you're trying to swindle them. You're pretending that it's not the thing that it is, because no one actually would pay for the thing that it is because it's worthless, and they know it. When they think deeply about it, it's like, why would I pay for a book that ChatGPT wrote? I could just ask ChatGPT. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that today. I could just ask the AI for whatever answers I want, right? No one would actually read that. So the entire premise of trying to sell an AI book or trying to sell AI art to people is to deceive them. And this is why people are so vigilant about pointing out when AI is used. And why this actually amounts to fraud is that this guy said he didn't use AI. It very much appears that he did. And he collected a paycheck without really bothering to do any work to make it not look like AI. And moreover, the AI is bad. And so this also plays into what I call the AI Dunning-Kruger effect, which I've talked about in other videos, which is just that people who are really not equipped to properly evaluate real art are not going to be equipped to detect AI or to properly evaluate AI art either. So this person that says, I saw these and I approved of them and they didn't look like AI, is just basically saying, I don't have the skills to know what AI looks like. Maybe they haven't used the programs enough. Maybe they're just a baby boomer. Baby boomers seem to be really susceptible to this. And I think it's because they haven't tried to generate any images with Grok or anything else, or even like Gemini or something like that. They just haven't done it. So they don't really know what AI is supposed to look like. They just haven't experienced it a lot. That's my hypothesis anyway. But I notice older people have a lot harder time quickly identifying things that are likely to be AI, let's say. Okay, so and this is highly likely to be AI. In fact, I would bet money that this is AI. The big thing is that it's bad. So she couldn't tell that this was bad. So she couldn't properly evaluate the art and see that it was bad, that it didn't match what was in the books, that it looked bad, right? She couldn't make those evaluations to say like, no, you're not earning a paycheck for turning in this garbage. And at the same time, maybe the artist who made it was bad enough that he couldn't tell either. That's also bad. That like he's on that side of that Dunning-Kruger thing where it does look as good as his own art. Or maybe better. He's like, this looks better than what I do, because he's not capable of actually evaluating even his own art. That's also bad, right? That also shows a real, I don't know what to call it, like an amateurness to what he's doing. If that's the case. I don't want to like project that that's definitely what's going on, but it's possible that that's what's going on in these photos is the artist and the publisher both are incapable of properly evaluating whether the art is good or bad. And having seen some of the art and some of the other illustrated editions here, I think that that's probably true. I've seen some pretty bad art, some lackluster art, shall we say. Really nothing compared to what we see from like Tolkien, where we have like really top of the line artists drawing stuff like Ted Nasmith, who's just fantastic. And of course the Alan Lee editions, which are very, very popular Tolkien editions. That's what fans really want, is they want that level of quality art for Westeros. And they're not going to get it. Instead, they're going to get AI crap because no one bothered to check this on the way. So what I would really love is for people to just be honest about what they do, right? It's like, if it's AI art, just be honest about it. And if you're really honest about it, you'll find that consumers don't want to pay for it, not just because they're anti-AI or they think AI is bad or anything like that, or they have some specific attitude about AI, but because they understand that AI is worthless. Why would you pay for that? Why would I pay to have AI images inserted into a George R.R. Martin book when I could just have Grok make me infinite images of whatever I want? We understand there's no artistic vision behind it. We understand that the scarcity of artistic skill is not in play here, right? What makes a thing valuable is scarcity. Artistic skill is scarce. Real artistic skill is very scarce. AI art, by definition and by design, is not scarce. It's designed to be infinite. It's designed to make that which is scarce infinite. Knowledge, ability to maybe understand data, right? There's many uses to AI that we could think of as like liberating people from the difficulty of finding the skills to assess data and the time and the human labor to like assemble data and interpret it. And AI can do that so much more quickly. It's the same thing with image generation, right? They could just generate an image. They can generate an image. I'm not even talking about the second order effects. I'm just talking about right here, the first order effects. It's worthless. No one would pay for that, right? So I guess that's my final point. You would have to be retarded to pay for someone to do AI art. No one should be earning any money from AI art ever because it's worthless. It has no market value. When someone can make infinite of it on their own without you, they don't need you. It'd be like paying for air. Like, who pays for canned air? Well, I guess we do pay for like compressed air, but you wouldn't just pay for air to like breathe out of a can. I say that. I'm remembering now that someone actually did try to sell that. They sold canned air to bodybuilders. I see bodybuilding. When I did my squats, I need this canned air to get this better, get reoxygenated, canned oxygen. Like, okay, right. But you don't pay for air. Like, why would you pay for grass? I need grass clippings. Grass clippings are infinite. You don't pay for grass clippings, right? No one does. So things which have no scarcity, we understand we don't want to pay for them instinctively. And we're correct to not want to pay for that. And that's the case with AI art. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. I'd love to know what you think. This doesn't look like AI art that I'm showing you right here. This is just like, looks photobashed. I'm talking about stuff like, stuff like this. And the fact that he wasn't able to, for instance, in this picture, see that there's a cross from the reference images that were there that just remained in the generated final art. Obviously, there's no Christ in Westeros. That's really, it shows a real lack of care in trying to disguise the swindle. There's a certain chutzpah to it, right? A certain chutzpah to being able to swindle a publisher out of money by doing a couple hours of work with some prompts, maybe. I'm like being generous that it took him hours to generate this. It probably took no time at all. It's like you wake up the day it's due, you're like, oh, great, I got to do those paintings. I did nothing. Midjourney saved me. And this is what you end up with. So I guess that's my whole point. My big point here is that I want people to be honest. And this isn't honest. And because it's not honest, it amounts to fraud. Okay. But yeah, anyway, that's it. Let me know what you think down below. I'd be happy to read what you think about this. To me, this is an ethics issue. It's not just like AI good, AI bad. It's clear to me that the fans don't want AI because they don't like it, right? So if a large portion of your fan base doesn't want AI art, you probably just shouldn't bother doing it. And then the AI art obviously doesn't look good because I showed it to you. So it's a double whammy. It's like, if it was good, they wouldn't, well, they notice because it's bad, and they notice because it's wrong. And after they notice, they also know that they don't want AI art, just maybe on general principle, right? The people who maybe are okay with AI art, it's like the minority rule, is that if you have a certain percentage of people that really don't like it and will just not buy a thing with it, then optionality suggests you don't do that unless you're really trying to save a lot of money. And if you're trying to save a lot of money, you have the intern generate the images anyway. Have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.